Hey everybody, welcome back. Hope everybody's having a great weekend so far. It's another beautiful day in Arizona, sunny and 75 degrees. Next video, before I lived in Arizona, I was a medical records clerk at a county jail back in Illinois for 10 years. It was about a hour west of Chicago, and most of the towns were pretty good. Crime can happen anywhere, but there were especially two towns, Aurora, Illinois, actually three towns, Aurora, Illinois, Elgin, Illinois, and also Carpentersville, that had like drug and gang problems. So majority of our inmates or criminals detainees they call them, came from there. And but we had people from coming from all over, crime. And I learned this too, even as a 28-year-old. Like, I thought crime just happened in bad areas, but I didn't. I learned that it could happen right under your nose, right in a murders can happen even in a good. I mean, I always knew robbery, burglaries could happen, theft, things like that. I've always seen that happen, but I didn't know that, like, your next door neighbor seems perfectly normal could turn out to be a child molester, a rapist, or a murderer, and it definitely does happen. And wanted to go over some of these crimes that just really blew my mind. I want to give a fair warning. Some of you may not want to watch this video because some of these crimes I'm going to describe, they pretty much blew me away. It really shocked me. Still, some of them kind of bother me a little bit. I'm slightly traumatized. I occasionally have dreams every now and then about this jail, about some of these criminals, even though I didn't really have much of to do with them as far as dealing with them personally, talking to them, personally one-on-one, or handling anything that they needed or wanted. Just basically heard about it. I spent most of my time in the medical office, and mainly, filing, scanning medical records. I dealt with a lot of lawsuits, so we had a lot of frivolous lawsuits, and so I did a lot of copying records for judges, subpoenas, copying records for judges, attorneys, so many lawsuits. It seemed like it gave me something to do. Hey, but it just seemed like such a waste of time because very few lawsuits did these inmates win. There were like a few where we were, the medical staff, nursing, paramedics, whatever. There were a few times that we were in the wrong where we lost and the inmate won, but for the most part, a lot of these inmates, they have so much time, to think. They have nothing else better to do, so they'll think of anything, to, start up a frivolous lawsuit. They can't make it. A lot of them, they get released. They can't get a decent job or any job at all. So, like, this is. There, a lot of them go on disability. That's the other thing too. I did a lot of disability claims. Like, a lot of it's kind of a shame because I think a lot of these guys did want to work when they got out, but I think nobody would hire them. So let's go, fuck it. I'm just going to try to get disability. And, a lot of those, some of those cases got, well, it's probably about 50-50 there, but some of those cases got approved. Some of them got denied, but it was so ridiculous. I know it is harder to get disability now, which is good. The process is longer. Like, it could take up to like 500 days before, from the time you start making a claim to the time you actually start collecting. If you do end up getting it, it could take like 500 days. So, because I guess they were reviewing, it's harder to get disability now, and they're, reviewing the cases, going a lot more into detail, which is good, because I think there's a lot of people on disability who really shouldn't be. I always, I guess when it comes to physical jobs, because some people say, oh, I can't work because I got a bad knee and I got a bad hip, things like this. It's like, okay, well, the way I look at it is, see if you can get a job where you won't have to use that disability. If it hurts you to be standing up all day, if it hurts you to be doing heavy lifting because you got a bad back, hey, find a job where you don't have to stand up all day. Find a job where you can sit behind a desk all day. You don't have to do heavy lifting. That's the way I look at it. But I know some people, even I think truck drivers, even though they're not really doing a lot of physical labor, I guess from sitting so much, they can get back problems from that. I know sometimes, because I did do quite a bit of sitting as a medical records clerk, and sometimes, like, I just had to stand up and walk around because I got tired of sitting all day. Sometimes my back would get sore, cramp up. And but yeah, some of these disability claims were so outrageous. Like, there was a guy that was trying to claim disability because he had a learning disability. He couldn't read, couldn't write. You know, he was Hispanic, I believe. And yeah, he said he couldn't speak English, couldn't read or write English. It's like, come on. It's like there's plenty of jobs you can do. You don't have to use that kind of intelligence. You know, it's like my job. I think somebody couldn't really speak English that well could do. Just cleaning on your own. So kind of got off track here, so get back on track. Yeah, it's kind of like a 50-50. I kind of have a lower opinion of society now. I thought most people were generally good, but I found out that a lot of people can't really be trusted. You kind of got to be on guard, but that is good in a way. I used to be like really trusting, too trusting. I got screwed over. I actually got sucked into certain scenarios where I probably could have gotten in trouble with the law, gotten arrested. I was with dating a girl once, and she actually made a drug deal, and I could have gotten arrested or killed. Didn't really know what she was going to do. She said that, she told me that she had to go out to pick something up. Didn't tell me what it was, and it was kind of scary in a way, because this guy thought that because I know sometimes drug dealers, if they think someone's trying to screw them over, they might, kill them or shoot, beat them up or whatever. Because this girl I was dating, she bought marijuana from this guy, this drug dealer, and I forget what kind of bill she gave him, but the guy was looking at it. He's like, this looks like a fake bill, and he was calling out his buddies, hey, does this look real to you? I'm like, oh shit, like if this guy thinks we're trying to screw him over, he's probably gonna kill her, maybe kill me, or beat us both up, or what have you, and kidnap us, make us disappear. I had no idea. I was just so relieved to make it out of there. Okay, and again, I got sucked in. Some people, like I said, are good people. They just get in with the wrong crowd, especially like with gangs and things like that. They feel like they have no other choice, and sometimes a lot of times they have to do things they don't want to do, like jumping somebody, killing somebody, stealing, what have you. So yeah, it definitely it made me not be so trusting, which is good. It made me be more I shouldn't say suspicious, but more cautious. More street smart, I should say. So, I apologize. I'm really getting off track here. So, to get back on track, excuse me. So, the first crime I want to talk about was actually this. Kind of reminds me of any of you've seen that movie Psycho, when Anthony Perkins, it was made back in the 60s, like Norman Bates. There was a guy that owned a hotel and was out in the middle of nowhere, and it was a restaurant, and I guess he was killing and murdering his guests for whatever reason. It was men and women that he killed, and he was a cannibal too, kind of like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He had a restaurant, and God knows there were some rumors that he might have been serving humans as burgers or steaks, whatever, to his guests, his customers. The bodies were cut up, and they determined, I guess he was a trained chef, a trained meat cutter, butcher, whatever. And I guess the detectives, the FBI, whatever, the detectives that investigated, they could tell by the way that the bodies were cut up that it had to be like a chef or a butcher, a meat cutter, somebody that really knew what they were doing, to cut through joints and separate bones like that. So he was in our jail, but he was definitely mentally ill. He ended up not going to prison. He I'm not even sure if he's still alive, but yeah, I haven't heard anything about him recently, but yeah, he got locked up in a nut house, a mental health facility. And he's never gonna walk, if he's still alive, he's never gonna walk the streets again. He's in there for life. So yeah, that was pretty strange. People kind of like that guy Ed Gein that was in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was actually based on his part of it. Most of it was like based on his life. Yeah, serial killer up in Wisconsin that he had I think he lived in a farmhouse, and when he finally got caught, I think he only killed like 3 people, but he was a cannibal, and he was basically a grave robber. He would rob graves and bring the dead bodies back to his house, and I think he was a cannibal too. I think he cut bodies up, and he used they were humid skulls are used as like soup bowl. He had like chairs made out of like human bones, and rugs, things like that made out of human hair. And yeah, this guy, I saw the movie on that guy, and they always said he was kind of like he was a loner, he was never married, never had any kids, and he was kind of like a creeper, even though he came off as friendly, but yeah, he definitely came off as being kind of a creeper, didn't really talk that much, always kind of came off as an oddball, and I knew some people actually, because I actually worked at a restaurant, and they said, oh yeah, this guy used to come in, the guy that owned the hotel, he said, yeah, he used to come in here to eat and drink once in a while, and he was a nice guy, like, was never belligerent, never harmed anybody, never yelled at anybody, but he said, yeah, he always kind of came off as kind of an oddball, made people feel uncomfortable, so that was a story with him. Next one was a woman at the time. She was about 30 years old. And I guess her son, who was like 16, 17, was a victim of bullying for many, many years. Several different bullies. And for some reason, like she said, she was frustrated with her son getting bullied. I can understand, I mean, if it was this one bully for all those years, but it was the first incident between this bully that she just flipped out, just ended up taking it out on this one bully. And what happened was, this was a Saturday night, and her son, who was like 16 or 17, whatever, was at a party. And I know some people said it was his girlfriend. Someone said no, it wasn't his girlfriend. It was just a girl he liked. Well, there was this guy that danced with his girlfriend or the girl he liked. So her son basically started it. I guess his son started yelling at this guy, and they started fighting. And he ended up getting the shorter end of the deal. I don't know if he threw the first punch or whatever, but this guy, he got the worst end of the deal. He got punched, and he ended up needing, I guess he got punched in the forehead, like right above one of his eyes, and ended up needing like 16 stitches or something like that. And her mom, his mom didn't call the cops or anything like that. Took him to the emergency room and got him all fixed up. And this was like, late afternoon, early evening the next day. And, like I said, she didn't call the cops that night or the next day. She didn't contact the parents or contact the kid, the 16-year-old kid. So it definitely seems to me that she was up to, it was premeditated. That's what they reading about the case. They determined that, since she waited so long till like 4 or 5 o'clock the next day, that she definitely, planned it out perfectly as to what she wanted to do with her and her son. It wasn't just like, a spur of the moment type of thing. She waited so long. She was really, she probably could have called the police, probably got an assault charge on that kid. There was a party, a dance party. There were plenty of witnesses. So what happened was she took her son the next day, and he had a baseball bat in the car, so it definitely, she didn't know this kid was going to be outside, but I think the fact that, her son brought a baseball bat, it definitely says to me, and that they waited so long, didn't contact the police or the parents, definitely says to me that it was premeditated, and they were looking to cause some type of trouble, some type of fight. So this kid lived in an apartment complex, and she lived like half an hour away, her and her son. So this woman, she drove half an hour. This kid lived in an apartment complex, and he just happened to be outside. She saw him, and I guess she just flipped out. Temper just flared. There were plenty of witnesses. I don't know how she thought that she was going to get away with this. It was a nice day outside. And there were several witnesses that said she got up to, this is an apartment complex, parking lot, she got up to like 30, 40 miles an hour, and she basically pinned this guy up against a brick wall with her car. Got up to like 30, 40, maybe even 50 miles an hour. Did it on purpose. It wasn't an accident. I mean, they said that she jumped the curb. The kid was running away, and I guess there was like there was a curb, and there was like grass between the curb and the apartment building, and she jumped the curb to pin him up against the wall, and he was still alive. I guess she hit him so hard that the investigators said that that he was wearing a belt, and I guess his belt buckle left an imprint on the hood of her car, and blood spatter too. So he was still alive, but she instructed her son got charged with murder too. She instructed her son to get out of the car and fuck him up. So her son got out of the car with a baseball bat and said, "Oh, talk shit to me now, bitch." And he hit him with a baseball bat. I'm not sure if it was just once or several times. So they ended up, he was still alive, but he ended up dying not too long after. They called 911. Paramedics took him to the hospital. He was pronounced dead of head injury, I believe. a bodily injury not too long, within like an hour or something like that. So her and her son, they fled the scene. She had a flat tire. She didn't get too far. She actually left a trail of blood from the crime scene all the way to this gas. She pulled into like a gas station parking lot. People called the police. She left a trail of blood. There's blood in the hood of her car. She had a flat tire. Her car was banged up, and the police officers came over the radio, and there was a police officer nearby that saw her pull in to this gas station and had a feeling it was her. You know, he had this description of her and description of her vehicle, and yeah, that she just left her car there, and they were just gonna, I don't know what it sounded like they definitely didn't have a backup plan. I don't know how she thought she was gonna get away with it. I guess the police officer immediately pulled in and told her to put her and her son to put their hands up, and they were asking people to come over as witnesses, and she admitted right away, but she didn't really see anything wrong with it. She's like, "Oh, you don't need any witnesses. I'm the driver. I hit that boy." You know, she didn't know he was dead, and you know, they said like she was like pissed about her son who just got punched the night before. She's like, "Oh, where were you cops last night? And my son got beat up." And they asked her why she killed that boy, why she hit him with a car, and she said, "Oh, what would you have done?" She's like, "My son got beat up last night," and like I said, she didn't really see anything wrong with it, and she ended up getting she was in jail for 2 years before she went away for murder. She ended up getting 35 years in prison. She got credit for the 2 years that she was in jail, awaiting trial. But it seemed like it was funny, like her. I don't know what she seemed like a normal person, but I'm starting to think that she must have been not all there, because she, you know, obviously murdered this kid, and for some reason, like, whenever you hear of a murder only getting sentenced to 5 years, you know, like, she thought that she was only going to get, like, I don't know if it was some bullshit her attorney was feeding her, but yeah, he was trying to get her off instead of first-degree murder, which she got charged, convicted of. He was trying to get her charged with second-degree murder, because he said, oh, it was like a loss of impulse control. You know, he was trying to get her, I think he got her to, like, plead, like, temporary insanity, like, she was just temporarily insane for that, you know, split second that she hit the gas, and she's just so stupid, and, like, she knows exactly why she did it. She was angry, and even though the kid's parents, they said, like, oh, you know, when you run somebody in a wall with a car, you know, bullshit, you know exactly what you're doing, and they asked her why she did it, and even in the trial, she was crying, you know, probably crocodile tears, because, you know, all of her mugshots, even to this day, I looked her up online, her prison mugshot, she's smiling. It's like, how can you be smiling after what you did, and you're away from your family for all these years? You know, you're not going to get out to your, if you do get out, you won't get out till you're 75 years old. And, yeah, she didn't seem like really remorseful. It just seemed like she was sorry. She felt bad that she got caught. But yeah, they asked her why she did it, you know, and family, nobody were getting closure on it. She's like, oh, like, I don't know what happened. She's like, you know, I don't know why I did it. I did it out of love for my son. I was just tired of my son getting bullied and picked on. And she's like, I wish I had an answer. I don't know. I wish I could tell you why. I wish I had an answer. I'm so sorry. It's like, yeah, I don't think she's sorry. I think she's just sorry that she got caught. And, you know, she was talking about how much, you know, of a problem, how irritated she was being in jail. It's like, well, how do you think that kid feels that, you know, you killed? How do you think the family members feel? You know, they're never going to see their son on this earth again. And I think her son, yeah, he did get murder charged too, but he didn't get as much time. He got like maybe 10 years. She got 35 years. So that was a pretty screwed up case. And the next one I wanted to go over was a woman. It wasn't the first time it happened. You know, there's that old saying, you know, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you. But there was a woman, and this woman was definitely mentally ill. I guess she claimed she grew up near a chemical plant, and she said she was possessed by chemicals. And I guess back in 2002, I don't know her method, but she tried to kill her husband by poisoning him or some way. I'm not sure how. They said it. Anyway, go into details in the article. Excuse me, the story. They just said that this was not her first attempt. This was actually her second attempt. So in 2002, she tried to kill her husband in some way. I'd be like, that's it. We're done. Divorced. That's it. I don't know if he was mentally ill too. I'm starting to think maybe something was wrong with him. But she actually tried to poison her husband with a 7-Eleven smoothie or Slurpee, something like that. I forget what she put in there to try to poison him. I don't know if he tasted it or actually ingested it and had to go to a poison control center. But Yeah, she was mentally ill, and I do believe that she was remorseful because she tried to hang herself while she was in jail, but she ended up getting prison time, and she got, I thought she was going to get admitted to a mental health facility, and we do have a lot of people, a lot of the 65% of the inmates were mentally ill. In jail, prison, I don't think is rehabilitating. I think a mental health facility would be more rehabilitating, but these judges don't understand that, don't agree with that. But yeah, she did get 20 years because she did try to commit suicide by hanging herself. She hung herself, but they were able to get her down. I forget what she hung herself with, but they were able to get her down before she died. Saved her life. So that was her. And there was another woman, she tried to kill her husband. She hired a homeless guy. She actually paid him, she was going to pay him like $30,000 to kill her. I guess her husband had a big insurance policy. And this guy immediately wasn't going to do it. He went to the police and told them about it. So they said that they were trying to get her to confess. This woman ended up getting 25 years in prison. Said that she was mentally ill too. Said she was just joking. She wanted to see if he was stupid enough to go through with it. Changed her story so many times. Yeah, I don't know what was going on in her head, but yeah, she I guess met him in a community college and was planning it all out. She I guess her husband was retired and a big golfer at some country club, and she was trying to get this guy to shoot her husband in the head. A number of methods, like shoot him in the head in his car. Or she told this guy what kind of car her husband drove and what times he played golf. At one point, she wanted him to put a bomb underneath her husband's car, and she got caught with a wire. She was in jail for a couple of years before she got sentenced, and she got 25 years. And I guess this her ex-husband, well, he immediately divorced her. But I guess he's so terrified of her. Even when she gets out, she's already been in prison for 10 years, and she's got another 15 years to go. But yeah, he's so terrified of her that he, I guess, moved out of state. He changed his name. He doesn't want to take a chance of this woman going after him again and finding him again, because I think she got charged murder for hire. And she also, when she was in jail, they got extra charges on her because she made all the phone calls, incoming and outgoing, are tape recorded, and she tried to put a hit on the homeless person. She called somebody else to try to murder this homeless man. My God, that was her. And then there was another girl. She was a young girl in her early 20s. She didn't even know for sure, but I guess she just suspected that her boyfriend was cheating on her. And again, she was trying to get him shot in the head. And I think she she already had a new boyfriend. So it's why would you care at that point? I would break up with a person. If somebody cheated on me, or if I didn't trust them, like that, if I suspected it, I would just, if it bothered me that much, I just would break up with them. I was like, why would you want to be with somebody that, they're going to get their just desserts? Sooner or later, karma's going to come back to bite them in the ass, eye for an eye. And, I just wouldn't want to have anything to do with somebody like that. Just let it go. But, and she hadn't, and that's what I would think if I were her new boyfriend. She had a new boyfriend. And, she said that if I were the boyfriend, I'd be like, well, why do you care? You're with me now. Why do you still care about this guy? But, I guess the boyfriend had to return her in. He was playing along with it because she was trying to get her boyfriend to murder the guy. He's like, oh, well, I'm not going to do that. But he's like, my cousin could probably do it for you. And so I guess he went to the police, and they gave him a number for an FBI or a detective, some type of detective, to record the phone calls. So the boyfriend gave her the number. He said, oh yeah, here's my cousin, give him a call. And it turned out it was this detective, and she went into the whole plan over the phone, and she ended up getting 20 years in prison for, again, murder for hire. Let's see, and then there was another guy who was mentally ill. He got admitted. I think he will never walk the streets again if he's still alive. He got admitted to a mental health facility for life, but I forget what the circumstances were. He was at a bar, and I don't know what happened. He was causing some kind of disturbance. I don't know if he got into a fight, argument, whatever. He was getting belligerent, but he got kicked out, and he came back with a machine gun or an Uzi or something like that, and he shot 8 people, I think, killed one or two. One of the people he killed was a bartender. I think he was mad at the bartender for kicking him out. And yeah, he ended up getting admitted to a mental health facility. And then there was a doctor. He was already like 67, but yeah, he got some prison time, lost his medical license. I think he was on the verge of retirement anyways, but what he was a neurologist. Or he worked at like some type of pain clinic, I think. People coming in for like nerve pain, things like that, arthritis, achy joints, tendonitis, things like that. And what he was doing was I guess he was giving some of his female patients, give them like free medical care and free drugs for sex. He was basically sort of like a prostitution in a way. And yeah, he ended up getting 7 years in prison, and he lost his medical license, but I think he was on the verge of retiring anyways. And then there was a Catholic priest that he was only in there for a couple days. I'm not sure what the outcome was, if he got acquitted. And people donate a lot. That's how these churches stay up and running. At least Catholic churches, by people's, that's how the priests like get their salaries, by the parishioners' donations. And I wonder if like what happened was this guy was accused of, being a child molester, being a rapist, and he was in there and only like 2 or 3 days. But a couple Catholic priests from the parish, from the Catholic Church, showed up and bonded him out. I started thinking to myself, like, oh man, like I wonder if they used like parishioners' money to bond this guy out. I mean, if he's innocent, that's one thing, but if he was guilty and my money that I'm donating to the church is being used to bond out some scumbag like that, I'd be pretty pissed. And the funny thing is I don't know how they do it in jails. I don't know how they, because certain inmates in there actually show up on the news, and like I don't know if there's any way like if they can know about that. To keep like the news channels off if a certain inmate is going to be on the news and they're in that cell block. But this priest actually came up on the news. He was in the cell block, and it was on the news, and he was in the cell block when it came up. And a bunch of guys like recognized him, like, dude, that's him. Oh God, like, we're gonna get you, boy, we're gonna get you. And the other guys like, yeah, rape him. And I'm not sure if anything. I think they put him in protective custody, but yeah, he was. They all saw it on the news and recognized him, but yeah, he was out, and not sure what the outcome of the case was, if he got acquitted or eventually got convicted. But he got bonded out after like only 2 or 3 days. Yeah, it was pretty funny. And there was a guy that. I don't know, the wife must have called her father, and it sounded like there was definitely usually domestic violence. It's not the first incident where there's an arrest. Normally it's like the women just have it, and there's normally a lot of prior incidents that lead up to an eventual arrest. So I think this woman, things got heated. I think she called her dad. So the husband actually was beating up on the wife. And I think the wife had called her father, and the father came over to the house, and actually caught him in the act of beating his daughter up. So the father-in-law ended up beating his son-in-law up. He beat his ass pretty good. He came into the jail, was all banged up, and he called his wife, and yeah, even after he got beat up by the father-in-law, he was calling his wife, saying, like, oh, when he gets out, that he was going to get her. But then it's like he acted like such a tough guy with his wife, and he was acting like a chicken. He said, like, oh, he was crying, and he was saying, like, oh, jail's like my biggest fear, and it's always been my biggest fear, and now it's actually happening. He's like, I think he went on suicide watch, probably just to stay in protective custody, because in jail, prison, like, if you do anything to women, like beating up women, you beat up kids, do anything to like babies, or you're a rapist, oh man, you Catholic priest, if you're a priest molesting children, if you're a cop, definitely you are definitely a target. Sometimes they put those people into protective custody, into segregation automatically, just for their protection. So yeah, all of a sudden he turned on his sissy side of him. It's like, he said jail was his biggest fear. It's like, okay, well, why didn't you think about that before you put your hands on a woman? And I'm pretty sure this is not the first time it's happened. I'm pretty sure he did it several times. No, I had no sympathy for him whatsoever. And there was another woman that was in the mentally ill. I think she did get prison time, but she didn't get into a mental health facility, but she got in a heated argument, and she actually killed her husband with a cast iron skillet, which is a frying pan, really, really heavy. And there was a case where, this is a pretty fucked up case. This girl had this boyfriend, and I guess they thought they were going to be together forever, and they ended up breaking up. She got this boyfriend's name tattooed on her right shoulder, and they broke up. And I guess, to get a tattoo taken off, I think they have to razor it. It's like pretty painful. Like I've heard most people say like tattoos are permanent, because I guess to get it taken off, it takes a long time, and you have to use a razor. Like it's really painful. So I've heard, that's why I actually haven't gotten any tattoos. I was thinking about it, but it's like I don't know if I just think I might regret it later in life. Like I don't know if like if you gain weight or you lose weight, you gain muscle mass or you lose muscle mass. Like does that you get I know the ink has to be redone over time, because I know it can fade. I don't know if you get old and wrinkled, if the tattoo starts to look fucked up and wrinkled too. So that's why I just think I would regret it. So I haven't gotten any tattoos, and they're painful too, and they're expensive. So I'm not planning to get any. I definitely would never want. I could see definitely. I was thinking about getting my daughter's name possibly tattooed on me, but yeah, like even like a wife or a girlfriend, you never know what could happen. And that's like, if you get another, girlfriend and marry somebody else, you still got that person's name tattooed on you. It's kind of a fucked up situation, so I would never ever do that. So anyway, this girl, she had her ex-boyfriend's name, I don't know if it was like a rose or something, tattooed on her shoulder, and he wanted her to get it taken off, and because he had a new girlfriend, and she was refusing to get it taken off. So she was over at his house for some reason. I think she was, because this guy was like a tattoo artist or something like that. And he's like, oh, I could do something that, I think she had agreed to it. I could do something that could cover up the tattoo, like sort of like a collage to hide it. Would do like something bigger, sort of like a stained glass window look to it where it wouldn't show anymore. So she agreed to it. And I guess the next thing you know, like 3 or 4 girls came in, and along with this guy's help, they all escorted her. They picked her up, they put her in a car, and somebody else that had an apartment was in on this too. So they put her in a car, and they beat her on the way to this apartment, and they took her into the apartment. They continued to beat her. I guess they beat her so bad that luckily she turned out to be okay. She's perfectly fine. She lived, no permanent injuries. They beat her so bad that she suffered, the ex-boyfriend, I guess, beat her so bad that she suffered bleeding on the brain. And, like, I don't know if burning would actually take a tattoo off. Probably not. I imagine, once the burn healed, the tattoo would show again. But they were, I guess they tied her up at this apartment. This one guy in an apartment agreed to let this go on. But, yeah, they stripped her naked. They tied her up, and they tortured her. They basically burned her back and her shoulders with lit cigarettes, and I don't know what would have happened. Like, I don't know if they were planning to murder. I don't know if they thought that they were just going to torture this girl and she wasn't going to say anything, that she was going to go home and just say whoop-de-doo, it's over. I was wondering if they were eventually planning to kill her. If they beat her bad enough, she probably could have died. The girl actually said that she thought that she was going to die, but I guess there was a lot of noise going on, and somebody in the apartment heard all the commotion, called the cops, and everybody vanished from the apartment, and they just left the girl there. And yeah, eventually all these people got prison time. They got 10 years in prison. But yeah, it didn't really seem like they felt any remorse at all. They're all smiling in their mugshots. I don't know how they can. Definitely, they all seem pretty out there, not they're pretty fucked up in the head, to do something like that to somebody. I can't imagine, like, I could see like 1 or 2 people doing that, but to convince like 4 or 5 people that was a good idea. And I guess the ex-boyfriend actually paid all these people money. That's like, okay, it's like you're gonna get paid money, but yet you're gonna end up in jail, and you don't need it. You're not gonna have that money to spend. You don't need that money for anything now. I guess they were all pre-picked like people that I guess supposedly were hard up for money. Like I think they were all like single mothers that really needed the money, but it's like yeah, now they're in jail and they don't have that money to support their kids. And somebody else is taking care of their kids. Some of them might be given up for adoption, so that's pretty screwed up. Let's see here. And then there was a woman, actually she was in a mental health facility like down in Florida years ago. She had already killed one person by stabbing them. I think it was a family member or something like that. She killed somebody by stabbing. They thought that she was rehabilitated. She was actually in a mental health facility. Not sure for how long, but I think it was at least like 10 years, they let her out, and she ended up stabbing her sister several times. I think that they said that she stabbed her sister like, oh man, was it over like 100 times or something like that? And she's definitely mentally ill because she said that when she was in jail and she wasn't putting on an act, I could tell she was severely mentally ill, but she didn't even realize that she did it. She thought that her sister was still alive. She was trying to call her sister at home, and she was like, oh yeah, well, my sister's not answering. And I thought for sure that she was going to get admitted to a mental health facility, but she was in there for 5 years awaiting trial, and I guess they determined that she knew what she was doing, that she wasn't insane, that she wasn't really that mentally ill, that she had enough control, and yeah, she ended up getting, I think, 20 years in prison. Let's see, and the last one I want to talk about, and this one is really, really fucked up. It was the police officer that was sexually abusing, raping, molesting his daughter from the time she was 7 until the time that she was 17. And I guess the first time it happened, the first time he raped her, it was at, and some of the correctional officers I worked with, a couple of them worked on the road, and they actually worked at the same police department that this guy worked at. And they said that this guy always seemed like a kind of oddball. Like he was really bizarre. He had like weird stories, and like, oh my god, like just shut up, David. And I guess the first time he raped his 7-year-old daughter was at like a birthday party or something like that, and he took her into like a bathroom, and I don't know what he told her was going to happen, but he's like, can you come in? I think the gist from what I remember is he's like, oh, can you come in the bathroom with me? I have to do something, to you. And he said it's going to hurt. And when it came to the trial time, the judge said like, oh, the only time a parent should have to tell their 7-year-old it's going to hurt is when like they go to the dentist or get a shot at the doctor's office. And I guess, this went on for like 10 years. And when she was old enough to know what was wrong, she told the mother what was going on, and I don't know if the mother even worked, but the husband, who was the cop, was definitely the breadwinner. He definitely made more money than the wife. I'm not even sure if the wife worked. She might have been a stay-at-home mom, but when the daughter was old enough, she actually told the mother this was going on, and the father was raping her, sexually abusing her, and the mother, I think she should have gotten jail, prison time too. She should be in there as well. And, but yeah, she didn't get brought up on any charges, but she said to the daughter, she's like, oh, well, I'm sorry, but you're just going to have to deal with it. Don't say anything because he's the breadwinner. If he got, thrown in jail or prison, we wouldn't have, we'd be poor. We'd have no way to live. It's like, oh, wow, that's great. What a nice parent you are. There's plenty of help you can get. Go to a homeless shelter and, get the help from relatives or somebody, friends. I'm sure somebody would take you in. You'd get government assistance or go to a food pantry. Things like that, so that's pretty fucked up. I think that the wife should have been brought up on charges too. That's kind of like neglect. So there was that, and I guess the only way that this guy got caught, she went to school. She went to high school when she was 17. She went to, I think she was a junior or senior in high school. She went to a counselor, broke down crying, telling her school counselor what was going on, and the school counselor turned this police officer in, and I wanted to kill this guy like so many people wanted to kill this guy. Oh, and I can't believe he was a police officer. He was pretty small. Like, I mean, so many people could have kicked this guy's ass easily. They put him in protective custody. And he was actually he ended up getting like 23 years. He was pleading his innocence until the very end. He was actually looking at like 140 years for his crimes. And he did seem, they say a lot of times, I did notice that in jail, that thing is scary. Is a lot of times these child molesters, these rapists, these murders, a lot of times it's shocking knowing what they're in for. It's like, oh my God, that guy's so nice, that woman's so nice, I can't believe they're in for that. But someone said, oh yeah, that's part of their manipulating ways. That's how they manipulate women and children and things like that. And he did a couple times. He was on the phone with his attorney or somebody, other attorneys. But yeah, he did. There were a couple times you could tell his bad side came out of him. And when it came to the trial time, he was pleading his innocence. And when it came to the trial time, I guess his conscience must have kicked in. I think he was probably just trying to get shorter time, because a lot of times that's what happens. People take plea bargains, plea deals. They plead guilty. They get less time, and I think he did feel slightly guilty, maybe, or maybe he just, maybe he really did, didn't want to get life in prison. Maybe he said, oh, I'll take the 25 years. 23 years, whatever, but I guess he was pleading his innocence, but his daughter was testifying. She was crying her heart out, and I guess, I think his conscience might have kicked in, guilt might have kicked in a little bit, but I guess he passed a note to his attorney and said, I did it, I'm guilty, like, I'll take the plea bargain, and he ended up only getting 23 years. So, yeah, that was the story with that. I don't know how anybody could do that to a child, especially your own daughter. Incest like that is really, really fucked up. And he went to prison, and he was always pretty nice to me, but he said, oh yeah, the day he was going to prison, he just didn't really seem like concerned at all. See, when they asked him, they always did like prison checks whenever somebody was they got convicted and they were sentenced. We always checked to make sure they weren't suicidal, they were doing okay, and he was basically acting like, oh yeah, I'm okay with it. It was my 23 years, and it was expected, and I'll be just fine. It's like, I wonder if they just don't have I wonder if the reality isn't set in of what prisons are really going to be like. Or you just don't feel guilty at all. You're just like whoop-de-doo. Maybe some people are feel better if they, oh, I only got 20 years instead of life, or 50 or 60 years. But when he left, the date he left prison, I remember that, and he's like, oh, he's like, see you, Jeff. He's like, been nice to knowing you. Like, yeah, you too. Like, good luck, David. And I was basically being nice about it, but in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, good luck in prison to you. You're going to be a sitting duck being a cop that was a rapist and a child molester. And it was really kind of funny in a way. They had, in protective custody, they actually had this one Latin King gang member that was in protective custody too, because when he's out, he's a pretty big badass, but when he was out, he's just got too many issues with fighting and with rival gang members, so it was kept him in segregation. But they get, I think they get like a day room, like certain rec time, but then when certain people could be out at certain times, because, if, like a child molester or, rapist or something like that is out, and then there's, somebody else out that could have an issue with that. It could be a sitting duck that could, turn into a fight. And there was a new correctional officer, and he actually didn't know. I was like, oh my God, because this guy murdered tons of people. This big time Latin King gang member. He's like a third or fourth generation Latin King. And he was already in prison for like 20 years, but he was back on an old case. I think he was back on an appeal or maybe a new case, whatever. But yeah, he was actually out like playing chess or checkers with this police officer. I'm like, oh my God, like I wonder if he knows, because they got along pretty well, and the correctional officer actually made a mistake. They weren't supposed to be out together, because if this Latin King gang member knew what he was in for, he would probably kill him. He didn't have anything to lose at that point, and they don't like cops, and they definitely don't like people that do things to women, children, any kind of child molester, rapist, a wife beater, things like that. So yeah, they actually got along pretty well. I'm like, oh my God, like someone said like, oh, I'm pretty sure that he knows. I'm like, well, I don't know. If they're getting along pretty well, he may not know, but it's so easy with the internet now. It used to be people could hide behind a mask, with their charges. They can make up a lie or not discuss it or say they were in for something else. But nowadays it is so easy because, it's a public, a lot of that stuff is online. If I were in jail, if I suspected, like, oh, this guy, if I suspected maybe he was a child molester or rapist or something like that, I could, very easily call up a family member and be like, hey, this guy's kind of a weirdo. This is his name, this is, his birth date, find out what this guy's in here for, and they could easily find out, like, oh, yeah, he's a rapist, and next thing you know, a fight breaks out, an attack, a jump happens. So, yeah, a lot of these guys, and very few, but a lot of these guys in jail, they deserve the prison, they deserve to be there. I didn't have much sympathy. I actually got like a hard on when I got, requests for subpoenas, lawsuits, record requests from attorneys. I actually got kind of adrenaline rush. I was always quick at copying those records because I wanted to prove that these guys were full of shit, that we didn't do anything wrong, that they deserve to, everything they got, coming to them. Actually, there were a few nurses in there. I couldn't be a nurse, a paramedic, whatever, like a doctor, a dentist. Like, I just wouldn't have sympathy for a lot of these people at all. I wouldn't be, and that's, I don't know how anybody could be like, give like medical care to somebody, in a jail or a prison like that. I just wouldn't have any sympathy at all. I was so unsympathetic with these guys. And there actually were a couple nurses that actually got fired because there was this one nurse, like, she kind of treated the guys according to their charges, look at their charges. If it wasn't really any big, just a misdemeanor, no big deal, she treated them nice. But like the murderers and the child molesters, the rapists, like there was actually one guy that was in there for murder or something like that. You got a call that he was having chest pain or something like that. It's like, oh, like, fuck him, he's in there for murder, he can suffer, let him have pain. And then there was one nurse that only worked there for me a couple weeks, and she got a call that some guy was having a headache, and I guess she refused to give him medication, or she was wanting to refuse. She was talking to other nurses. She's like, oh, he's a child molester. Like, should we not, should we let him, suffer with this headache? What about those, how bad do you think those kids feel that he molested? Why should we care about him? He should suck it up. Why should we care about him, being such a pussy, complaining about a headache? But that was catchy my mentality too, but that's why I would never be a medical care or dental care provider at a jail or a prison. And I went, I'm really tolerant to pain. I wouldn't do in the medical field or the dental field anywhere because I have trouble. I'm pretty tolerant to pain. I have trouble putting myself in other people's shoes. I'm kind of like, just suck it up. There actually was one nurse that worked there. And, there was a guy who was complaining about a headache, and, it's $10 to see a doctor or nurse. And he's like, okay, this guy was he told it like it was. He got a lot of respect. It's funny if it was a woman nurse, they would get in trouble for it, but the guy nurses actually got praised for it. But this one nurse I worked with, he was so funny. He said, like, okay, well, you got two choices. He's like, you could be a pussy. I could give you some Motrin for the, ibuprofen for this headache. You can be a pussy and pay $10 for medication for this headache. Or you can be a man and just suck it up and not have to pay anything. So what's it going to be? And it's pretty funny, and that's kind of like the way I felt about a lot of these guys in prison too. I mean, in jail. I didn't work at a prison. I worked at a jail. So, yeah, that's pretty much, I think I covered all of the bizarre crimes, all of the bizarre stories that I witnessed being at that jail for 10 years. I also have some, I'll put a link down below. I did another video about the, not the crimes, but like the crazy things inmates did over the years that I was in the jail. From what I remember, like nothing bad. It was usually like funny stuff, like just for example, there was a woman that was mentally ill that was like pulling her hair out and putting it in her eyes. I guess that's like a form of self-mutilation, so that's just one example. But yeah, I'll link you to that. I did that video a few months back. I'll link you down below to that video, so I think you'll find that very interesting too. So thanks so much for watching. I know I'm up to almost an hour here. Kind of hard to make a long story short in this case. That's just the tip of the iceberg. I have many, many more stories, but I just summed it up into the most bizarre stories that I came across in my 10 years working at jail. So yeah, have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all. Thank you all for your support. Comment, like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you all again real soon with another interesting video. Thanks so much again, and have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. Bye.